get all the selfish shit that you ever wanted to do out of the way before you have kids. If you have big dreams about going and, climbing in the Andes or going to Patagonia for 6 months and getting lost and all that kind of stuff, do it. What I want to do for my kids is give them the tools to figure out what they truly love. If you do something that you love, and that really, you wake up to do every day, you're going to be better than others at it, and success will follow.
Zucchinis? Give me the paper. Nice.
I love you, Cactus.
Hey guys, I'm Young, a full-time dad and a full-time professional with the goal to become the best parent possible. The Girl Dad Show is my journey interviewing fellow working parents aspiring to be both good at work and parenting. I'm going to do this by gathering and sharing unfiltered perspectives from my guests. So join me as I research parenthood one interview at a time.
Justin, thank you so much for joining me on my show today.
Pleasure to be here, Young. Thank you so much as well. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited. I have a lot of questions for you, but I'd love to start with just like sharing with the listeners what your professional journey's been like.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an atypical sort of career. It's almost like not having a career in the traditional sense. My first job out of college was jumping out of perfectly good airplanes into very dangerous areas of the world.
No way. Wait, what did you do?
I was in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and I was a paratrooper there.
No kidding.
You know what typical Berkeley graduates do after their time. But I had always, I think, from when I first started my career, really wanted to do things that would challenge myself and really create a sort of impact in the world that went beyond, I guess, the self and the now, right? So I figured, we have plenty of time to enrich ourselves and grow our bank accounts and all that, but a very kind of unique opportunity to do things that I guess kind of make you, part of a story that's bigger than yourself. And certain series of events had happened. I grew up really secular, and I wasn't, particularly religious or anything. But while I was in college, kind of witnessed a couple of events that really started to make me think about, because of events that were taking place in this country that was on the opposite side of the world, the events that were taking place impacted me directly, as some Berkeley student. And I really started to question, what's my relationship with this place? And is there anything that I can do to help, just make it a safer, place in the future for everyone? My family, I'm originally from South Africa, and almost my entire family left South Africa. No one wanted my generation growing up, with an apartheid government and that kind of way. So my family on my dad's side almost exclusively moved to Israel. On my mom's side, it was Australia and the US. So I left South Africa when I was a kid, moved to Los Angeles and grew up here in California. But growing up, I had always kind of made trips to Israel, and it was a pretty important place for me. So that got me out there, and I got to Israel, didn't speak a word of Hebrew, and learned Hebrew really quickly. And 11 months later, volunteered for the draft and served in the IDF, which was probably one of the most pivotal things or events in my life. And then following my service there, I started my first company when I was about 25 years old in the media technology space.
Right after this, you just went from that to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Wow. You literally just like jumped from a plane to jumping into a rocket ship. I love it.
Kind of, yeah. I started out by working at a media technology company that was developing point of sale advertising displays, and ended up patenting and creating a new kind of personal display or point of sale display where instead of a kind of static poster, which you would hold up at a convention or something like that, we created one that would scroll, kind of like what you see in bus stops. But it was really over-engineered and too expensive, and I would say it was I would call it a failure, except for the fact that I learned so much from it, and nothing is a failure if you learn something from it.
That's right.
So I learned a heck of a lot about what not to do. I learned a lot about partnership and partner relations and whatnot. And learned the importance of law behind business, and that's what eventually got me to come back to the States. And not really knowing exactly what my journey would be, I did what a lot of forgive me, lost souls do. Ended up
Yeah.
going to law school.
Oh gosh, you went that route. I see. Okay.
So
Very cool.
I figured, my thinking was with a law degree, I could do anything that someone with a business degree could do, but I would also have a very distinct kind of profession. So, when I was in my young 30s, I graduated law school, and I practiced law for about 5 years. I was very into kind of sustainability, and I'd been a big lover of oceans. I'm a scuba diver. I started surfing
Awesome.
and all that
Awesome.
kind of stuff. So really wanted to protect ecosystems, and I thought that working in energy was a really great way to do that. So I became a project finance attorney. I started out at Paul Hastings in New York, where I worked on utility scale clean energy projects. So building wind farms, solar fields at a utility scale. So
Awesome.
did that for about 5 years in New York, and later in Hong Kong. I started practicing law about 2 weeks before Lehman collapsed. So
No way. And you
just
did that
came
in Hong Kong?
What's that?
You did that in Hong Kong?
Yeah. So I started out in New York, and then because of the financial collapse and the recession, if you will,
Yeah.
Deal flow kind of all but dried up in New York. So I was sent off to Hong Kong to work on projects in the Far East there.
What the heck, dude? This is amazing. I love this.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I loved Hong Kong. It was great to work there. I'd spent a few years prior to that living in China. Part of my degree, my undergraduate degree, I did a degree in political economics, and my focus was on China. Originally, I'd studied Japanese earlier. I just thought it was really fun, and it was great. I got to go to Japan when I was 14 on this kind of scholarship to spend a summer with a Japanese family, and I just loved it. It was my first time abroad on my own. And so after that, I started studying Japanese. But then when I got into college, a good friend of mine was like, "What the heck, man? China's the future. Like, you should really learn Chinese." And I kind of agreed. So I ended up really focusing on Mandarin. Spent collectively about 3 years in China studying at Peking University. Later, I practiced law in Shanghai and Hong Kong as well. So that got me through about my late 30s, I would say.
Oh my gosh.
But, it was interesting because while I loved the subject matter of what I worked on, wind and solar projects and all of that, the day-to-day of what my life was like as a lawyer was just not a good fit for my personality and who I really was. I found it to be quite lonely, and, you'd sit in a very fancy office, and I had a secretary and paralegal and books on my shelf and everything. But at the end of the day, I mean, I wasn't interacting that much with other people, which is what I love the most, is connecting with other people and being with others. And to sit alone in an office all day drafting documents and reviewing documents just was not a good personality fit. So my last year of practicing law, I did a lot of pro bono work in the education space, where I had a real front row seat to see the difference in access to basic school supplies between, let's call it, kids and families of means and those without. And I just thought, this is crazy in the United States that things like crayons and pencils and markers and erasers are really a privilege and not a right for kids here. Was just nuts. And then kind of looking at how much teachers were spending out of pocket to provide those things for their kids. That was just nuts. So got together with, who later became my co-founders, who were, pretty big players in the CPG space. And in 2014, we co-founded the brand Yoobi, which was kind of like, this was right at the time of the rise of sort of Tom's shoes and that one-for-one giving model, but no one had done anything like that in the school supply space. So we came up with some really novel things that I thought were really exciting for the category. One being, every item that we sold, we would donate a school supply item to kids in need in the U.S. A lot of people, there's plenty of organizations out there that support kids, around the world. But if you want to see need, you don't have to go more than about 5 minutes from where you live, no matter where it is.
That's
and
right.
there's real need there. So we're very intentional about focusing our donations to kids in the U.S. And secondly, when you would walk down a Target aisle and kind of take a look for school supplies, everything was kind of organized by product, right? So you're looking for pencils, they're over here. Pens are over there. Notebooks are over there. And, for a kid, that's not very fun, So we merchandised our offering in a different way. So when you looked into a Target store and you saw Yoobi, the Yoobi section was organized by color. So everything blue was here, everything pink was here, everything green was there. And it was just, the idea was, can we make it as difficult to pull a kid out of a school supply aisle as it is to pull them out of a toy aisle? So with that, we launched Yoobi, which was just, so just really a passion project, if you will,
Yeah.
My heart was really behind it. And we just had such a good time with it. It was really fun. It was coming up with new products and ideas behind the category that was just, it was fun,
Yeah.
And
sounds
then
amazing. Sounds amazing.
My role in the company was chief giving officer. So I got to run the impact side of the company, which all of a sudden I went from this like highly technocratic lawyer to a heart forward kind of business executive, where I got to go out and travel across the country to see kids in some of the most dire situations out there and just let them know how amazing they were and how important they were. And every time we went to one of these schools and we would give out school supplies, taking a moment to recognize teachers for how incredible they are. It's like, as the expression goes, not all superheroes wear capes. And to see how hard these teachers work and to be able to back them up, saving them hundreds of dollars, a year on these basic school supplies, and to give the kids these, the kind of confidence that they need to know that they can accomplish anything. We just need to give them the tools to make their dreams come true, if you will. I'd always kind of had this attitude that in every school that I go to, there's potentially a future president sitting in one of these classrooms.
Oh, that's
and
a great way to look at it.
Like,
Yeah, I love that.
That's right. and just like if they love something, let's give them the tools to create and express themselves in that,
Yeah.
So that's how I spent the last 7 years or so of my life, kind of growing and building Yoobi from an idea to, one of the biggest rollouts that Target had done with a brand to now today, Yoobi being in most major retailers, was just a fantastic, fantastic journey to see the growth of a brand like that. And something that I could really put my heart and soul behind. Because it was so much more than just numbers, and profitability, but it was really creating meaningful change, and not in some kind of marketing sort of, capacity, but truly, a meaningful change for the kind of folks that we were trying to impact. And I think, the reward comes not just from, a salary that you receive from something like that, but when you start to get thousands of letters from kids, handwritten letters from kids from across the country saying how much they loved, getting these supplies and the things that they wanted to do with themselves. I think it's a better business practice to really engage in sort of triple bottom line businesses that are way above just simple profitability and bottom lines around that stuff. So, you can win in so many ways when you start to create impact behind a brand, both from, a customer engagement perspective. So, for example, when we started receiving these letters, what the heck do you do with these things? I was reading every single one of them, but we needed like storage for this stuff. And then I was like, why don't we give this to our customers? So we started to integrate those letters into every e-commerce order that was done through Yoobi. So when you ordered your school supplies, you would get a handwritten note from a kid.
Wow. You literally gave the letter that you got, you sent that out.
Yeah. So, thank you for making a moment like this possible to our customers. And what a different experience, as a consumer. But at the same time, it was also amazing to integrate into our employee base, because a lot of people view their jobs as a job, but when you start to get into the impact side of your business, it becomes much more than that. So someone who is, let's say, in operations or different, aspects of a business who wouldn't, necessarily have direct contact with the impact side of the business, I wanted to give them that feeling that the work that they are doing around, for example, ops or some other space, HR, was in fact creating moments like this. So a lot of times I, take our letter, the letters that we got from kids or videos that we produce and whatnot,
Yeah.
and I'd put those letters on people's desks for them to come into each day, or from time to time. And so
Yeah.
I think that was really helpful from like employee retention, and recruitment as well. So people wanted to work for Yoobi, and become a part of that, because I think in today's age, people are looking for more than just a job. We spend so much of our time in an office. It's got to mean more than just a salary. And I think when you're in the social impact space or working in the kind of ESG space, you're able to do that in a way that other companies simply can't. So
That's
that
awesome.
got me to about almost 2 years ago now, when I began to think, as a dad, and as I started, having kids and watching them grow up, and climate change issues started to become more and more relevant in my life, I began to really question and think about, like, well, what's the legacy of all this stuff that we're making, right? How much plastic are we using, and how much of it is just single use and things being thrown away and whatnot? And that started to that itch became really it grew inside of me. And so now I'm getting ready to launch a new brand late summer, that I'm super excited about, that really engages in sustainability and gets people to think about the full product life cycle of something that they're purchasing, right? So it's not just about the actual, stuff that you're buying, but what does that stuff come in? How much plastic is being used, and is a company really giving thought to the end of life process for whatever it is they're creating, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're producing millions of things, maybe the company should be giving thought to what happens once those
Yeah.
things are done. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
What if every company did that, right? Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it'd be pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And I think it's, when you start to engage in sustainability and other ESG aspects, um, there's a real opportunity to create something that's not just incrementally better, but something that's impossible to ignore. And I think that's when you can start to really, take market share and grow a business in a really exciting way. So really looking forward to that this year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am too. I mean, just based on your professional trajectory and journey, I can't even imagine how amazing this next thing is going to be. So I'm very,
Yeah.
very excited about it. You have lived an incredible, incredible life so far. I'm
I'm
like really,
trying.
and it's really, you know what frustrates me the most is that you have a really cool man bun too, and it's just like I'm like you have like literally everything. I'm like, what the heck?
that's
You have
that's part of my post lawyer recovery kind
is
of
that what
stuff.
it
I
is?
figure.
I like it. You're just like, hey, I'm cutting loose. I'm gonna have a really cool looking man bun. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I can't. I'm obviously joking about being frustrated. You look really great. I love it. I'm very jealous. I'm gonna
Thanks,
try to
man.
copy that very soon here, and I'll take a picture and I'll
There
send
you
it to
go.
you.
You got it. Your hair's longer than
Yeah,
mine now.
I know. I got it. I'm getting it there. Right. Look at that. So amazing though that you started as a paratrooper. It was a paratrooper, right?
Yeah.
And then but you were also wait. Before I even get into that, what citizenship do you have? So you were born in South Africa.
Born in South Africa, so had South African citizenship. Immigrated to the U.S. I got my American citizenship. It took me, I think, almost. I mean, it must have been like 12 years to get my U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, because I'm
I think
assuming
when I
is
was 18, I became a U.S. citizen.
nice. And then
Um,
I mean, you had to get one for Israel, right? Because
yeah,
you couldn't be part of the
yeah.
service if you
So
didn't have one.
yep. So Israel is a kind of very interesting program for, folks that live abroad that want to end up coming over there or serve. And so long story short, I'm what's called made Aliyah, word in Hebrew, which means like coming to Israel, and got my citizenship, Israeli citizenship, when I ended up moving there. Um,
Man, that's awesome.
yeah.
You're like the living James Bond here. I love it. It's so cool. You have like citizenships all over the place. You have like
Yeah.
passports everywhere. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really really cool. Very very exciting. So I this is a really cool story, and I could probably talk to you the full hour about just your professional journey because I have so many questions, but it is a parenting podcast, so I'm going to switch gears and come back to it. Talk to me about your kids. Who are they? How many do you have? And then more about, like, when did you have them in this journey of yours?
Yeah.
Like, how do they fit into your timeline?
So I have 2 kids. I love them to pieces, and I have Noah is my daughter. She's 8, and my son is Atlas, and he's 5.
Awesome. Those are great
so,
names. Atlas. That's amazing. Yeah.
He's got a lot of weight to carry on his shoulders.
Yeah, right?
No
dad
it's
pun
a big
intended.
name. I hope he grows into it.
There we go.
Yeah, my daughter came around just as I was getting ready to launch Yoobi. I really felt kind of ready to be a dad. I think I was 38 when I had her, and had just left kind of my legal practice and was getting ready to launch this new company that was all about school supplies and kids and everything like that. So I thought the timing was great. I was very excited to be a parent. And yeah, so she came around then just as I was getting ready to start a new company, which is, I think, a kind of scary time to become a parent.
Yeah, wait, what? So the timing of it is, that's a very risky thing. You went from an incredibly lucrative, stable job to jumping into something that you had to start and build on your own.
Yeah.
And you simultaneously decided to have the kid during that jump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Decided it was kind of it kind of happened, but
okay, got it. Oh, okay, got it. So it was a happy.
But it was.
It.
I was definitely ready for it, and I think the other thing that really made a big difference was having an amazing partner as well. My partner, she's had a very kind of stable career, very different than sort of mine. She's been in finance, and so she was that kind of like stability rock for us that allowed me to kind of do the more risky things, take the really low salary as you're kind of starting a business and be able to take those kind of risks because, she had something that was like, much more stable. Let's just say.
It's just a secure thing. It's a great partnership. What a great
it was really, really great partnership. And I think that was a huge part of us being able to do the kind of things that we wanted to do, both as parents and as professionals.
Yeah, that definitely helps a lot. I mean, it's so key, right? People don't realize that, like, being an entrepreneur is like, it takes a village. Like, you need a network, you need a support group, and it's not just like this lone wolf thing where someone just goes out there and like they magically like create and build these magical businesses, right? It's like, no, it's a whole ecosystem. Is your partner staring at you as I talk about this, right? Okay.
I'm like, she's not here, right?
Okay, yeah, right, exactly. We better talk some better things about her. I love it. It's really important to have that kind of understanding of what you're trying to do, and what you're trying to build for. And I have found that, that partnership can be more than just money. It could even be like, it's not just about the financial aspect. It'd be also the emotional and stuff, because the journey of an entrepreneur is also rife with, mental and emotional heartaches.
Yeah, you better be you better have mental steel if you're going to be an entrepreneur. It is not for the faint or weak at heart at all. It's literally, I feel like being an entrepreneur it's basically a series of, putting out fires constantly and being able to roll with punches and get through things that 9 out of 10 people, I think, would say, F this, I'm out.
That's right.
It's really about a heck of a lot of grit and being able to, I guess, be optimistic. And I don't mean seeing everything through rose-colored lenses, but I mean viewing threats and things like that as opportunities. I found that every time every time something has come in, which is like, this is an existential threat to our business has gotten better and stronger for it, and because of it. And I think that mindset is really important for entrepreneurs. How do you handle and manage stress? How do you view challenges, and how do you constantly, strive to make whatever it is that you're building better? And if something doesn't go the way that you want it, figure out something that's going to be better than your original plan.
So I have to ask then, because I also feel like, and you can correct me if you disagree, but I also feel like having kids is a lot like that too.
Oh, nothing goes the way you plan. Nothing
Yeah,
is as
right?
expected. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny because when you have more than one kid, you begin to realize how unique each one of them really are.
Yeah, there's no
My
game
son and my
plan with the
daughter.
second. Yeah, the second one like kicks you in the teeth, right? Because you're just like,
Yeah.
wait, I was expecting this because of the first. You're totally different. You're like, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter and my son couldn't be more different. You know, my daughter,
Yeah.
Noah, she's very independent, very strong-willed, very creative, loves art, dancing, music, and she's a bit of a risk taker like me. You know, she
I
wants to
love
do all
it.
these kind of like, I love doing outdoorsy stuff. You know, things that have a slightly higher risk factor, from like rock climbing to mountain summiting and hiking.
Oh,
You know, extended
awesome.
hikes and stuff. She wants to be a part of every single piece of that. You know, but she's very independent and very strong-willed. It's very difficult to convince her to do something that she, you know, let's say, you know, or change her mind about something. Hey, bedtime really means bedtime. You know,
Yeah.
she's like, maybe
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Whereas my son Atlas is very different. You know, this kid is like the sweetest pancake in the whole stack. I mean, he is such a lover. You know, the kind
Yeah.
of kid who every time I leave the house, it's not just one hug. You know, it's like third hug for the road. You know, fourth hug for the road. Then I got in the car. He's
Oh my
like, open
gosh,
the
so
door. You know,
cute.
fifth hug for the road. You know, kind of like that. He's the kid where, whereas Noah will be like, hey, Dad, you know, I'm ready for bed. I'm gonna hit the sack. You know,
Wow.
Atlas
That's
is
awesome.
like, yeah, that happens at like 10 p.m. Okay, 2 hours after her bedtime. But my son is the kind of kid where I fall asleep. We basically fall asleep where I'm like holding his hand basically every single night. You know,
Mhm.
it's this vice grip on my hand as
So
I'm laying on the
cute.
floor next to his bed,
So
and
cute.
I love it. I love
Yeah. Yeah.
every moment of it because I know it's not going to last
Oh
forever. You
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people think, you know, hey, I got to start weaning the kid off of this kind of like dependence on you and make them more. No, that'll happen in time.
Yeah. They're gonna do
You
it
know?
whether you want it to or not.
Yeah. They'll all become teenagers eventually, and
That's right.
I just want to enjoy this time with them, you know, especially when they're younger and sweet and think that you're their world, you know, because that's not going to last.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at some of my nieces here because my sister has older kids, and I'm like, oh yeah, we should just enjoy this because they're gonna like naturally not want to be hanging out with me
Yeah.
in just about 5 or 6 years here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially when you have daughters, you know, the girl dad show and everything like that, I think the role of the dad is really important, especially in those young years. You know, when I found out I was having a daughter first, you know, I kind of there was this moment of panic in me, you know,
Yeah.
I was like, shit, you know, I'm like, I don't know, can I say this on the show? But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, one of my friends was just like, well, when you have a son, you only have to worry about one penis, you know?
Yeah.
I'm
I've
like,
heard that
oh
joke.
my God, what am I going to do? I
I've
have a
heard that
daughter now.
joke.
You know, I know how guys think and all this, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And, but I think that especially with my daughter, you know, if dad is there, you know, and really present and showing them what positive male interaction looks like and real love
Yeah.
looks like, you know, you do the first 8 years right, I think the next 8 are going to be okay. So that's been my kind of mindset with her is, you
I
know,
love it.
really being engaged and involved in her life, you know, taking her to do things that, you know, I think most dads or others, you know, might not want to do. I'm all about like kind of letting them take responsible risks, you know, and
Mm.
being there with them. I think that's what builds confidence, and that's what lets them know that, you know, I've got someone here backing me up, so I'll take that extra risk. I'll climb that extra rock or whatever I need to do.
What
Yeah,
what do you want your kids to do when they grow up?
whatever makes them happy. I just think,
Mm.
you know, as I don't know, as an immigrant, I was always kind of, I feel like, you know, I had this like sort of family expectations of, you know, you should do this, you know, have a career that's going to make you, you know, money and, you know, give you that kind of like security. And I love that and all. And I think I tried that with the whole lawyer thing, but then I
Yeah.
saw how unhappy I was on a day-to-day basis, you know, trying to do something or trying to fit into a mold that wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
And I learned this much later in life, probably, you know, in my early 40s, where I did these like personality tests, you know, the Myers-Briggs and the 16 personalities. And
Yeah.
I really took the time to start to really learn about myself. who am I? What makes me happy? How does my personality really work? From my career to my day-to-day at my job, to being a parent, to being a friend, to being a partner. And the more that I learned about myself, the more that I realized that I really needed to do something that I truly love, because I spend so much of my day doing that. So what I want to do for my kids is give them the tools to figure out what they truly love. The rest
Yeah.
will come after that. If you try and fit into a mold that's not right for you, you're never going to succeed in business, because there's always going to be someone else doing a similar job that effing loves it,
Yeah.
and they're going to
my
be better than
gosh.
you at it,
Oh
But
my
if
gosh,
you
it's
do
beautiful.
something that you love, and that really, you wake up to do every day, you're going to be better than others at it, and success will follow. So
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
that's what I'm thinking for him.
Man, I actually feel like that's something that I should listen to and learn, and I'm like, that's not even for my kids. Like, that's a beautiful message. And I think that it's really, really like hard to do that for people, because um the fear, it's like the fear of like, not having that security, not having that set like kind of standard, right? And then second of all, just like the societal pressures of what normal and success looks like, it's so prescribed to us at this day and age. And it's so unfortunate, because like we talk about my kids, and I talk to my kid about my wife about like what we want for our kids, and like I don't even care if they go to college or not, right? I'm like, I don't actually really care. I actually just I mean, obviously I know what I want them to do, but I'm like, it's not anything that's normal, right? Like I personally want them to be artists. I want them to be musical and sing and all those other things. And, and they're showing interest in that, obviously, because it's in our family, and I like to play music, and I see a cello or some sort of larger. With a lot of flags on. I see a Korean flag on there, actually. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Spent some time there as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. But, I think that it's like one of those dilemmas where you're like, like you got to figure out how to like break it yourself. Because you will naturally do what your parents gave to you. And I'm not sure if you share the same sentiment. I don't think you do per se, because it sounds like your childhood was always kind of riddled with discovery and trying new things, and kind of taking things in the stages, learning and go to the next, and taking stages and learning the next. But my parents were trying to make sure that they created a better life for us, right? And so they had this kind of immigrant mindset of like, hey, I got to do this thing and to get to this level of money so that we can build a better life. And it's like one of those situations where I have to learn how to break that, because I won't be doing service to their sacrifice if I just do the exact same, right? It's like, now I have the opportunity and the luxury of thinking about this in more than just making money to eat and live. I can actually like think bigger than that because of the sacrifice they made, or else I'm going to accidentally give that to my kids as well too. So it's this constant battle of like trying to figure out like what that temper is, right? Or like that the gauge is.
And I think it's it's really interesting as we've transitioned into a really service-based kind of economy. The skill sets that you need to be successful in a sort of technocratic world are much more siloed and narrow. And what that can potentially create is a world where there are fewer and fewer people that have the skills to be kind of successful from a financial perspective, more and more people that are going to be left out of the game. If you're a truck driver right now, I'd be pretty worried about automation and where that's going for your industry and whatnot. But at the same time, you look at how things have developed, and especially in the digital world, and all of a sudden there is a huge role for artists,
That's right.
and musicians, and there's just all kinds of like ways to be successful in a creative capacity that we couldn't have imagined, I think, growing up. So it's all about figuring out what your passion is, and then how do I turn that into opportunities to get the things that I want to get in life. And I think really there's at least for me, and I think a lot of people today, there's a different mindset on what derives happiness. As you look at that kind of like wheel of life, how important and how big of a role should money play in your overall happiness and success? And I think after a certain point of income, there's just diminishing returns on that. So, and at least for me, I think, when I was a lawyer, so much of that was about FaceTime, who's going to bill like the 2,500 hours this year and all of that. And what really doesn't get discussed is, what's the cost of that? Your time is everything. And, basically being hired by a company is them buying your time. And you got to really ask yourself, is it worth it? And what am I giving up in exchange for that? And does that incremental amount of income really make up for what I'm giving up? And my answer to that today is, you know, basically no way. You know, like yes, I want to earn and I want to do well and things like that, but I wouldn't do that at a cost of not seeing my kids grow up. There's just too much value in that for me to sacrifice it completely. So, you know, I really think it's about figuring out what kind of, you know, how do you balance, you know, the things that are important in your life, and not just going that sort of traditional route of I'm going to be hyper competitive, I'm going to be the top of my industry and this and that. But you know, I'll see you kids once you're 18 or something, you know, something like that. You miss the point of life.
Yeah, I don't know how you are so sage at with such a hipster look and so young in age, right? You're like talking like, you know, a lot of the I mean, not that age matters, but like a lot of the older mentors that I have, right, that are you know, seeing life in kind of in reverse and looking at it from like, hey, but you're basically talking like them, and so congratulations, you're wiser than your years. So there you go. There's one thing. But just to kind of break down some of the tactics, like I love to know like how you personally are like combating this, because I think more than the normal person that's a W-2 or a worker bee, you're building a business. Yeah. That is insanely sporadic, time consuming, hurry up and wait. Like, and then now it's like nail biting slow. Like there's just a lot of things that you can't plan for as an entrepreneur that's building something. And you're talking about like, how do you temper that and control time with your kids? Like, so what are some of the mechanical things that you're doing?
Oh, I think one of the most important things is, like, I have a kind of life partner and who helps me raise my kids and do all of that. I have the best co-founder business partner I could ever hope for. I think that's one of the most important things, is understanding what you're good at, what your capacity is to put into something, and finding someone who will match that and exceed it in so many ways. So I credit a huge amount of how far we have gotten to my co-founder, Aliyah, who is, you know, she works like I have never seen another human being work. And there is just no way that I could have done this without her. So again, just kind of, it all comes back to finding the right people and surrounding yourself by people that will enable you to get to where you want to go.
I love it. And so just on a more tactical level, how much time are you actually allocating to? Because do you have like hard block off times like that you
Yeah, I kind of do. So, you know, mornings, typically I'm, you know, kind of getting them ready for school, taking care of all of that stuff, and then they're off to school. They stay in school and then do like kind of after school programming, typically. But they're also doing things like taekwondo and violin and piano, and they go to other stuff. And I don't want to miss that. I don't want to subordinate that to nannies and things like that. I want to be there for it. I mean, I got to see, you know, yesterday my kids breaking wood and taekwondo and, you know, doing all of that. And I don't want to miss that. So, you know, Allie and I just have really good communication around that kind of stuff. And I say, all right, look, typically, you know, 3 to 4 days a week from about 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I'm going to be busy. You know, I'm going to have that time with my kids, or 4 to 7. And then I can hop on and deal with stuff after that as needed. So it's all about kind of communication and you know, having, again, that partnership that understands that. And I think, you know, look, when important stuff comes up, it comes up, and then we find workarounds and whatnot. But to the extent that we can plan things, and I'm not spending a ton of time commuting because I'm basically working from home right now with everything that's going on. The lack of, I used to, you know, Yoobi is headquartered in El Segundo, and I used to go from LA to El Segundo every day and back. You know, that's 2 hours out of my day. So now without having to do that, I can take those 2 hours and now put them towards my kiddos. And like I said, when important stuff comes up, you know, we do it and they understand.
That's awesome. I love it. Those are really, really great answers and very, very helpful for me. So hopefully it'll be helpful for the listeners as well too. I'm still trying to figure a lot of that stuff out, right? And I think it's like one of those things that comes with being an entrepreneur is like, you have to constantly discipline yourself too, right? And I don't know if you relate to this, but you can lay out a plan, but because of the nature of building something, it goes to shit, right? And so every moment you have to like battle yourself and say, this is the discipline that I have to apply to myself, and say, I'm going to make the conscious decision to block this off or not do that. And it's incredibly hard. I don't want to like sound like a total like douche for lack of better words, but like there are times where you're just like, wait, I just like walked away from a massive deal to go, like help my kid, like, with her potty training. It's just like you have to like justify that, right? But it's like important, and you gotta like, no, it is that important, like, and you have to discipline yourself to say, in the macro, this is more important, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would walk away from a massive deal to go to my kids' taekwondo, but if there's some typical meeting that I would usually have then, or something that's going to move something an inch or two further, that can wait. You know what I mean? And I think that or at least I hope that the folks that I deal with in business understand that, and support that in many ways. I mean, I don't really want to work with people who are going to be like, fuck your kids, let's get this done. You know what I mean? That's not who I want to surround myself with.
I love it. Yeah. So you're also even incorporating everything around it. So it's like not only just like your co-founders and your partner, you're also like looking for customers and everything around it that basically resonates on your frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it, bro. This is great. This is awesome.
I mean, like, at the end of the day, a business is made up of people, and I want to incorporate that in every aspect of my business, when we start doing more hiring and things like that, like a super family friendly, kind of policy, I think that'll make people appreciate, work more. I think it'll make them work harder. I don't think, having these structured kind of work environments, the way that we traditionally grew up or knew them, really creates better work product or more efficiency. I mean, to be honest, I want to consider like even like a 4-day work week, because if people during the week are thinking about all the shit that they can't get done because they're so busy with work and everything, that they're going to be distracted and they're not going to be focused, right? But you give someone a half a day or a day in the week, let's call it a weekend Wednesday or something like that. Anyone can work their asses off for 2 days, right? If they have that extra day where, okay, this is the day I'm going to get all my stuff done and everything, then they come back and they put their hearts into work for another 2 days. I think, in places where they've been experimenting with this, the work product and performance outperforms, traditional work models. So I really want to think outside of the mold about how to give people, the life that they want to have while, ultimately creating a more productive and efficient business.
My gosh, you're awesome, man. I love it. You're making me want to work for you. It's awesome. Yeah. You're literally, your tactic is, think about the human and then basically surround yourself with people that are in the same, same mindset as you. Yeah. And it's like so obvious, but it's like so clever. It's like so simple that it's clever. It's like really, really great, man. That's awesome. How do you teach your kids this?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm teaching them business tactics exactly, but, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed doing, especially during my Yoobi time, was involving my kids in my work. Yeah. It was the kind of business where I could really easily do that, right? So, if I was going out on a give and we go to a school and, we're handing out school supplies to every kid, I often brought my kids to that, right? Why? Awesome. Because it's like, here's what dad does when he's not around and all that stuff. But more than that, I want you to see how good it feels to give something to someone else, right? Because a lot of kids, especially at this young age, me, I want presents, right? Mm-hmm. I want more and more and more. Give me, right? And yeah, getting stuff feels good, and that's great and all. But I want to show them how good it feels to give things to others and to make others feel good, right? So I think that's been one of the really great things about my experience at Yoobi, was being able to show my kids, what I'm doing, what it's about, have them, just be proud of me, for what it is that we do, and to start to give them the lessons that we were trying to integrate into our business to my kids, how good it feels to give and to help others and things like that. So I think, with my next business, I'll continue to do the same thing, especially around sort of sustainability issues that we're going to be facing and that are going to be very, very present in their lives. At 5 years old and 8 years old, they're going to be seeing it firsthand when we go and we do some of the impact-oriented stuff that we're looking at doing.
That's awesome. Justin, this has been really, really great, but I do want to make sure I ask you a couple of rapid fire questions that I ask every guest, just so I can be cognizant of your busy schedule here. So I'm going to switch gears here and fire off a couple rapid fire, so there's like symmetry to all my episodes. Okay?
Yeah.
You ready for the first one?
No, go.
What advice do you have for other parents and soon-to-be parents?
Get all the selfish shit that you ever wanted to do out of the way before you have kids. If you have big dreams about going and, climbing in the Andes or going to Patagonia for 6 months and getting lost and all that kind of stuff, do it. All the selfish stuff and selfish, self-centered dreams that you had, go for them and do them now. Because for many years, it's going to be really hard to do those kind of things. So if you're someone who loves to travel and go on great adventures and things like that, it's really hard to do that with a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a 5-year-old. Later on, as the kids get a little bit bigger, they can start to participate with you. But even then, it's still a little bit different. So if you have some journeying to do that matters to you personally, do it.
Great advice. Yeah, that's so smart. Yep. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing before you had kids, what would you tell yourself?
Get ready to have your mind blown and your world expanded in a way that you never thought possible. I think a lot of us fell in love before we had, kids and things like that, and thought we knew the extent of our capacity to love. That world gets turned upside down when you have your first kid, I think, and understanding just how deep your capacity is to love and how little of your life is now about you. So get ready for that and get ready to enjoy it and make the most of it. It's a really exciting time. I thought that, when I got my first dog, I'm a huge dog lover and I have like an unhealthy sort of like love for my dogs. And I thought, I don't understand how I could love something more until it happened. So get ready for that. And I think that can affect every aspect of your life. Suddenly things stop becoming about you and much more about someone else. And it's hard to sort of describe until you have kids, but it's one of the most exciting things I think you can experience as you get ready to have your first.
Man, well said. I completely know what you mean. Even the dog thing, I know what you mean. That hit me right here. I love that. What is the most surprising thing that you learned about yourself after becoming a parent?
Kind of leans into that previous answer, which is just my capacity for love. And I think also just how much I would enjoy it. I think, we grew up in traditional sort of, or more traditional kind of families and ideas about what family is, and the role for men and dads was really as that's a kind of like security provider and all of that. And I think that's really flipped on its head now. I don't think that's the way the world is. When I look at sort of, at least in my home, kind of my partner wife, she's like the breadwinner of the family and has that stability and the job, and hers is much more rigorous because she's in the financial world and less flexible. So what I really enjoy is sort of having that flexibility and understanding that, hey, dads can do all this stuff too. It's like, It's actually really cool. And, for example, at my daughter's elementary school back before the COVID era began, they used to have, exercises in the morning, and a parent would come in and kind of lead exercises for the whole school. And that's almost always a mom. But I was like, why the heck should it be like that? Let's get some dads out there and go do it, That's right. So really fun to get engaged and involved and be silly with your kids and things like that. I really enjoyed that kind of thing. So just how much fun it can be to be a dad and how much that can add to your life.
I love it. Awesome. If you had one favorite business book that you could share, what would that favorite business book be?
I think one of the most influential, maybe there's two books that I'll share. One that I think was the most influential to me was called Thoughtfully Ruthless by Val Wright. It's really about kind of when you're an executive, it's understanding the sort of arc between being ruthless and no matter what you need to do, the world can burn to get me to where I need to go, right? Versus being thoughtful, which is that I'm going to think through every decision. How's this going to affect people, our workers, all this kind of stuff, right? And if you're too far over on one side of the spectrum, then you never get anything done. And if you're too far over on the other side, then you piss everyone off, right? And neither are good. So it's all about kind of finding that that balance between the two. How do you make decisions effectively, quickly, while, considering the sort of greater world that you live in, from your company perspective. So I really enjoyed that, because I think I've traditionally been too far over on the thoughtful side. So learning how to be a little bit more ruthless, quick on decision making, has really helped me grow as an executive. But the other book I'm gonna throw out there that I think was one of my favorites is called Comfort Crisis, and this really has very little to do with business and everything to do with how we need to get ourselves outside of our comfort zones. And boy, being an entrepreneur gets you outside of that comfort zone really quickly. And instead of kind of, backing away from it and being nervous about it, embrace it, understand what it is, take a step back, view it, and come up with great approaches to get over that discomfort. So it's really more a book about life, but I think I try and really integrate that into my business practices as well.
Oh man, I can't wait to read both of those. Seriously, those sound awesome. I've never even heard of them. This is awesome. And then to bring us home, when you're not building the next big thing, or your passion projects here, and you're not being a super dad, what does Justin do for fun?
I think I've tried to get back to my love of nature and getting outside a lot more. A couple of years ago, I got a very small group of friends of ours, and we started to do long hikes and things like that. So 2 years ago, we summited Mount Whitney and did about 50 miles on the John Muir Trail in the high Eastern Sierras, which is just one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever done.
Yeah, and challenging.
Really hard. Yeah, we have to train. And I like that, because you have to kind of train for it. It's not like you can just pick up and go, hey guys, let's do this.
That's right.
It's a lot of work to get to that point where you're going to safely be able to do something like that.
Yeah, it's like an accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah. Last year we did the Colorado Trail, about 50 miles up in the Rockies,
Nice.
over a couple of days. I've started to get back into the ocean more. I got my daughter surfing now, so I'm trying to learn how to surf.
Awesome.
Got to put this man bun to use somehow. And, just trying to do things that traditionally I thought were really challenging, and again, put me out. This is a direct result of that Comfort Crisis book. Thank you very much, author. But I started getting into open ocean swimming. I realized that I'd never really gone beyond the waves, and I've been to the beach a zillion times, and I was from Cape Town, and I grew up in LA, but I was always playing at that water's edge, and had always been curious what it would be like to go kind of beyond that. So I found a small group that does open ocean swimming, and the last couple of months I've been kind of getting into it, and just swimming beyond the wave line, and going and doing 1 to 2 miles in the ocean and coming back. It's things like that I think are really fun and exciting, and really get me to do what I really love doing, which is getting back out in nature and reconnecting with myself and the world around me.
Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. This has been terrific interview and episode. I can't wait for the listeners to check it out.
Thanks, Jan. Really appreciate it. Have an amazing day.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. We really hope you enjoyed that interview, and as always, please take a moment to review, rate, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.